Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 5th episode of Deconstructing. This month on the podcast, community manager Megan Everett sits down with game designers Jon Gogul and Shervin Ghazazani to talk about how Warframe is made. Also, you should note there are some mild spoilers ahead for the movie Armageddon, but without further ado, sit back and enjoy.
Welcome to episode 5 of the Deconstructing podcast. My name is Megan Everett. I'm the community manager for Warframe, and I have two very special Warframe designers here with me today. I have...
My name's Jon Gogul. I've been here at DE for a little while now. I'm a technical designer, and this is...
Hey, it's Shervin Ghazazani. I've been a technical designer for a little bit shorter than Jon, and yeah, I'm working on Warframe as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, so before DE, before working here, what kind of schooling or maybe even jobs that are relevant or not relevant did you guys have?
So for me, before here, I went to school at the University of Waterloo. I did engineering there. Before DE, I did a bunch of jobs. Used to be a math tutor. I used to be an IT technician, and I had a little small gig at IBM as well.
Ooh,
and then my first gig here at DE was... I got my start working QA on Dark Sector. Nice. So I've been here ever since.
What was the IBM gig?
It was mostly like a software, more software engineering kind of thing. It was more of a testing gig as well, verifying like web software. Not as exciting as games at the end of the day, but.
Hey, now last night, this is stupid, but I was on Netflix. I was watching Jeopardy, and they had that Jeopardy show with Watson from IBM. Yeah. So I'm like, that could have been you.
I mean, there could have been maybe. I don't know, but this was like ages and ages ago. I know Watson's super big now, but yeah, that's the extent of that. DU was my first game gig, and yeah, I've been here ever since. So
nice.
Worked out pretty well for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Carleton University for computer science down in Ottawa. And then I worked at a variety of places. Actually, IBM as well. I did a co-op there.
You both could have been working on Watson. Oh.
Both did IBM co-ops, huh?
Yeah. And then after that, I worked at a startup and did that for a while. We were actually at the beginning trying to make mobile games, and then we ended up transitioning to mobile apps. And then I ended up moving to New York City. And I did my graduate studies at the NYU Game Center. So I actually have like a master's in game design, which is
look
a
at you,
weird.
Oh, Jon is
Jon's throwing like
air quotes.
Air quotes.
Just air quotes.
Yeah. It means I think I know stuff, but I really don't.
He knows a lot. Yeah.
I did a couple internships there on some mobile games in New York, and then I moved back to Canada for DE. No, it wasn't that bad of a change.
So what does it really mean to be a designer? I feel like it's a broad term. You guys work on a lot of things. You might have a small hand in one thing and a large hand in something else.
Yeah, it's a good question because you'll see in a lot of different other studios. Designers have a lot of different categories. Like you're a content designer, you're a narrative designer, you're a sound is its own thing as well. You could be a sound designer, right?
Systems
design, yeah. And then for us, we're technical designers, which just means, hey, you can write some code as well along the way, right? I think the meaning behind that. So for us, we're doing, we're always in the code base. We're always scripting. We have a hard skill associated with it, right? But in terms of being a designer, it's 90% problem solving, right? It's just, hey, there's an issue with XYZ system, right? Like, can you help us? So, and of course, the idea process is also part of it. But from a day-to-day perspective, it's always just, how do we help? How do we fix something that's broken, right? At least that's my perspective of it.
Yeah, the way I look at it, like from a day-to-day perspective here, is you're kind of like a spiritual producer. So no, but like I know that sounds like it's intentionally like wishy-washy, which is like, okay, like people come and will ask you questions about like a certain feature or thing about the game that like you're known as being responsible for. So you're essentially just making sure that this thing you work on or this category of things that you're working on ends up being good or as good as it can be, and that involves curating ideas and on top of that, like Jon said, if you're a technical designer, you're writing code, so you're prototyping testing out ideas, play testing, doing things like that, just to make sure that like the thing you're working on is actually good.
Right.
There are game designers who don't code, and so those guys have to operate within the engine as well as they can, or they'll pull in a programmer to help them like make the thing they need to make and then test it and then give feedback and have a slightly longer iteration loop than us. But the tech guys just kind of like dive in head first and just try to make the thing work.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned like something that you've been working on to make sure that it works. So what's one of the projects that you've been a part of that you're most proud of for Warframe?
Oh, for Warframe specifically, or here at DE?
Both.
I guess both.
Just
Yeah,
do
yeah,
both.
fair. For Warframe, for me at least, the big thing that really shifted, at least the way that we thought about the game was PoE, playing Eidolon. So as soon as we shifted to that first open world and we started doing, a bounty system, we started trying to do open world missions. We tried to be more dynamic. It really, it made us have to think laterally in a lot of different situations. And of course, there's inspirations that you can draw from, but it was a big shift for us because, especially as a studio, we've always been making sort of linear-based games, like whether it was Dark Sector or The Darkness 2 or our Star Trek game, or the things that we've made before that.
Talk about Star Trek.
But we've always sort of been in that vein, right? We've always been a story-driven kind of studio, making an A to B game, and then as soon as we made that shift to PoE, all the open world games that we've all been playing along the way, we could sort of leverage that and draw some inspiration. And it was fun. It was fun to think about it a different way, right? In terms of Warframe, that was where I probably had the most fun thinking about stuff, I guess. So. Was
there a game in specific that you drew inspiration from when we started playing?
For personally, I know everyone here was probably playing Horizon Zero Dawn, stuff like that. I don't know, maybe Shervin, you've got...
I heard Horizon a lot. Like, I wasn't on PoE that much because I came on really late to it, but from what I remember seeing, it was, a lot of talk about Horizon. Later on, people started talking about Breath of the Wild a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
That was the big one.
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto was obviously, like, they were in super early on that stuff too, so...
In terms of projects then? I guess PoE and Venus was an extension, but the scope was a little larger.
Was it much different designing Valis and Venus, considering we'd already done Plains and Cetus?
It was tougher because you pour most of your ideas into the first iteration there, and you don't want to repeat yourself too much. You kind of want to try new things and try and use the space differently, especially it's a different landscape, different weather systems, things like that. How do we tie it all together? You don't want to just be jump into PoE, do your normal missions. Then if you jump into Venus and you're sort of doing the same thing, it won't feel too great. So you have to keep thinking and coming up with new content, new ideas, and making sure it's fun. So it's always going to be tougher as you go on, right? To build new content. But I mean, that's part of the fun of it too. You have to just keep thinking.
But it probably helped to have like the skeleton kind of an open world and a vendor system, essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it was like we could reuse the bounty system in a lot of cases. Just a few improvements here and there to make it work. But it was good to have the base to work from, like you said. So.
Shervin, is there a project you've worked on that you're super proud of?
For Warframe, probably the Railjack stuff, like the latest stuff, just because it's cutting edge, air quotes again. Everything on that stuff is just like we're taking the best thing we can, the best tech we have, and trying to use it to show off like the coolest version of the game, right? So it's that
stuff's really fresh too, which is nice. You get to think. There's a whole new space to sort of explore there, right?
Yeah, and whenever you look back on, whenever you look back on stuff, you always hate it. At least with me, like with my work. So like,
you can see the improvement as you go on, though.
Yeah,
which is
but
nice,
you always feel embarrassed when you, especially with code. Like when you go and look back at your code, you're like, "Who the hell wrote this?" And it was me. So, yeah, the Railjack stuff was a big step. I came on right when Venus was like getting started, so I really kind of like dove in on Venus a bit with regards to like the general, like going back to what Jon was saying about like trying to do it differently. Like that's basically where I tried to help out a lot. So the global alert system was something that I talked about a lot, referencing GTA, right? Like that was the first thing I noticed, and I thought it'd be a good way for giving the control to the player of like how wild they want their their version of Warframe to be. Some guys like fishing, other people want to just blow up everything they can, and I thought that star system was a big thing. And then obviously I basically started and finished the conservation system.
Heck yeah, you did.
Yeah, I jokingly call myself Animal Man. So
Oh,
dude.
I had you as conservation king or king of conservation.
That
Sounds
also
better,
works.
actually. Yeah, I would go with that.
I keep
So-
always expecting, and it obviously never happened, but I was hoping to wear like a fox hat at
Dude, I have a fox
TennoCon.
onesie. I could have given it to you.
Oh, well, I was not gonna go that far.
What?
I don't think. I
Comfort.
think like we're like very different sizes of people, so I don't know if it would like fit well.
It's like a one size fit all.
Is it?
It's massive. it's like baggy on me.
Yeah,
I
I
got
think,
it.
you're, I think
There's
we're
only
at
one
the,
way to
there's
find
only
out
one
about
way to
this.
find
I got a
out.
unicorn and a fox. So.
Next TennoCon, it's happening. Get
Yeah.
ready.
Getting a onesie. Or you can wear my corn costume that's in my office.
Oh yeah, I could do that too.
All right, so some of the projects that I know you've worked on because I write the patch notes and I see everything that you're doing.
Stop creeping my stuff.
Let's just jump right into
Yeah.
that, Sir John.
Break
Gogul.
out the tea.
Break out the tea.
Yeah.
So I think I've mentioned this before on many live streams, but I do read everyone's change list when I'm making patch notes.
You have to do all the patch notes, so of course you have to read them all.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
a lot of work.
When
Yeah.
you see how many submissions happen on a day-to-day basis, you're like, oh my
Yeah.
god.
Yeah, and that's like I don't read literally every submission every day because we don't do a mainline every day. But when it is a mainline and I have to go through literally everything that's
Yeah.
ever been submitted from
From
A to
XY
B.
date.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Respect, man, respect.
Thank you. I go a bit cross-eyed, but it's fine. But I do get to see some gems in terms of descriptions
Oh,
because I appreciate a good description. Sometimes I'll just literally use whatever you say and put it in my patch notes because I'm a tired human being. And sometimes you guys write some funny stuff. Jon Gogul, you did one back in the day for when you're working on Venus.
Yep.
And I won't say the end of it because it's a spoiler to the movie. How dare you, by
these
the
movies
way.
are pretty old, so you should have watched them. By
It
now,
doesn't mean
but-
that everyone has seen it.
Fair enough.
So this is an example of a Jon Gogul change description. He's working on Venus Assassinate, and he says, in the movie Armageddon, NASA sent 2 shuttles to the asteroid on a collision course with Earth in an attempt to save all of humanity. These shuttles, Freedom, and then he puts in brackets something to do with Warframe,
It's a function name for one of our API calls. Yeah, sure.
perfect, and
Right.
Independence, and another function call, I presume.
Yeah.
Are an example of a time-tested strategy known as always have a backup plan. Try very hard to find a good spot on nav to spawn the assassinate target and retry as necessary. So you basically use an Armageddon reference.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, that was the closest thing I could think of, right? And the true nature of that change is like we're trying to raycast down from the sky, trying to find like a good spot in the world to spawn this target for an assassinate mission. And if it ever fails and you don't get a target, well, now you don't have a mission, right? So you have to try really, really hard in some situations to find one. And what I found, at least when I was doing it one way, was, well, sometimes it fails, so just send a second shuttle, right? And make them do
Send
something
that
else
Independence.
just in
Oh,
case.
okay,
Yeah.
I get it now.
Now you get it.
Because I
now,
kept
yeah.
thinking, I'm like, you're gonna nuke it? Like
Nah.
what? Because they nuke the asteroid.
Well, no, like
right?
the first shuttle doesn't get there. Spoilers, I guess, right? But so you got to
I'm gonna have
send.
to put a spoiler warning for this podcast. There's Armageddon spoilers.
There's Armageddon spoilers in
Sorry.
here. So if you didn't watch it on City TV 100 times already, you probably.
That's such a
are gonna
Canadian
lose it.
reference, by
It
the way.
really-
I mean, that is probably one of the most Canadian references.
If you're watching this on MTV1 for our American friends.
Sure, American MTV.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's just basically, I mean that was the one I probably tried to fix that bug 5 or 6 times, and that was probably the sixth check-in that finally worked.
were
and then
over
went
it.
there.
That's exactly
Yeah.
why.
That's why I
that
wrote
makes
that
perfect
whole
sense
blurb
now.
for it,
Yeah,
right? No.
because you're like, I'm done with this.
I'm finally done with this. I
Yeah.
sent the second shuttle. It's okay now, guys.
Mm-hmm.
And now
first
it
you
always
succeed.
works. Yeah.
Now it always works. Perfect
Fingers
code.
crossed.
Yeah.
99% of the time.
Until
always
it breaks
works.
and then we get reports back and you're like,
Sure.
all right, 3rd shuttle,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
4th shuttle.
Which is ironic because I literally had to fix that this morning again because of what the Glen changed. So
Oh my god.
there you go.
So
Back-
it wasn't
back
Shervin's
into
fault.
it.
You were saying it was Shervin's fault. this
Well,
morning.
Shervin's fault I had to pre-process so long because there was all the animals I had to go
animals.
through, and I wasn't even trying to look for an animal. So why do I have to pre-process all of them, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's a giant world.
No, I know. And
You
that's
gotta
the-
put animals
you gotta
in them.
put
That's how
animals
it
in
works.
Yeah, that's fair.
Everybody wants their pobbers, so
Yeah, everyone loves those things, so that is super solid that those exist now.
I have a wicked design story for you about Floofs, by the way,
Please.
Sure, yeah.
which I don't think I've ever told anybody.
Secrets. The tea. We're spilling tea.
So yeah, inside baseball on how Floofs started.
Okay.
As we were developing conservation as a whole system, we kind of were nice and we started giving a decent amount of syndicate rep for it, which is great. But we kind of realized like there is no reward. And so we were trying to figure out like, okay, like what do we give players for doing this? There's not like a giant kind of progression path laid out for conservation. Obviously, you spend more syndicate points, you get more lures, you hunt bigger animals for more syndicate points, and that worked out pretty well. As I was thinking about this, for my 30th birthday or 31st, my girlfriend actually sent money for an Arctic fox conservation, and she didn't know I was working on conservation, like, which is really funny that this is all serendipitous and it happened this way. But what the conservation did was send me a furry fox, like
a stuffed animal.
A stuffed animal.
Yeah.
And so as I was trying to figure out what we should do, I was like, we should be giving stuffed animals.
Oh,
like,
sure.
and then at the beginning, Steve was like, no, we can't. We don't have the resources. And then sure enough, the next that was on Friday. And then on Monday morning, Greg had already made like
Greg
a
just
bunch.
banged those out.
Oh, he
He's like,
continues
I can do
to.
this, popper.
Yeah.
All the others, Bolarola, like just in
I may be Animal Man, but he's for sure Floof God.
Floof Man. Yeah.
He's Floof God.
Yeah,
That's his rapper name to this.
that's a good rapper name.
Lil
Animal
Floof-
Man.
Lil
That's like a
Floof.
sitcom.
Yeah.
Animal Man and Floof God.
Yeah. So he just started banging them out. And it was one of those things where like, and this happens a lot in design, I'm sure John's seen this, where like you do something and you're like, oh, without a doubt, like this is the thing. Like we need to do this now. It's not even a question anymore. Sometimes things just appear on the screen and you're like, this is 1,000% happening. We can't not do this. We actually this happened a bit in the TennoCon demo too, where we were talking about the Railjack cannon to shoot players out.
Megan's having nightmares now.
Yeah, PTSD's showing up.
Oh, God.
But the funny
You did great,
thing
by
was
the way.
that
You're
like
fine.
as
Thank
we
you.
were talking
Yeah.
about it in Slack, all of a sudden like I think me and Steve at the same time we were both like, you should just run through ships.
Oh, the Marvel moment.
Yeah.
Like it's literally what you said. Like there
Yeah.
should be a Marvel moment.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we both started laughing. We're like, oh my god, like of course, yeah, like everybody thinks about it, right? So
And then sadly it broke.
for now,
For now.
now,
For
yeah.
now is
The
the
demo
true
broke.
thing. Yeah.
it will work.
You guys did do that demo basically every day for a month, I want to say.
I think we
Multiple
calculated.
times per day.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
eventually it was like twice a day by the.
No, it got to 3.
We got to 3.
Oh, got
yeah.
to 3 close to
Yeah.
TennoCon, right?
We would do
So-
one at like 7 or 8 p.m. or something.
You should like do like a TennoCon kind of like recap one day with
Yeah.
some of the production people. Just be like, how much work does it take to do this thing? Let alone like the demo itself is like a big deal, and
Yeah.
and obviously like the cool thing is that we don't like fake a lot of the stuff.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of systems were
Yeah,
all
literally a live
right?
demo,
Yeah,
like-
yeah, it was all live.
All the stuff that we did for this TennoCon was like full real systems that we we didn't even do. I'm trying to think like, yeah, we didn't really do much to like force it to do the thing. We just put the pieces in place and it all just did the thing that we wanted it to do.
Yeah.
So that was actually like one of the things I was really proud of. It was like we didn't do the smoke and mirrors thing. We we
Right.
did it.
Do you remember because I do, when Steve sent kind of the company like the script, like the TennoCon demo script? Do you remember like your first reactions to it?
It's insanity.
I
That's
literally
what it-
messaged him and I was like, this is
Insane.
goddamn insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was like, there's no way we can do this.
That was me too. I was like, that's not happening. Like,
Yeah.
it's cool, but we can't pull that off.
Yeah, I was like, this is insane. And then this is where like and I'm sure you'd notice this, John, like there's like a masochistic sense in you where you're like, oh, this is gonna be like it's gonna be tough to pull off, but like I'm excited. Now I have like a big challenge that we have to try to do.
And to be fair, when you're really trying to put on a show, like you gotta reach for the
You
moon
have
there, right?
to,
And
yeah.
yeah, if you don't hit every mark, that's fine, but go for the top end as far as you can, right? And
Yeah.
that's what at least is exciting about it. It evolves along the way, right? It's like as you want to hit certain beats along the story or along the script that you sort of have for a demo like that, and you want it to end on a high note. You want to, everyone's got that nice little story curve where there's a couple lulls here and there, but you always want to you want to end on something that's super, super cool, right? It was a good moment at the end there, right?
Yeah.
So
Were you nervous as a tech designer to have to
Oh,
work
oh,
on
my
that?
absolutely.
God.
Especially if it's close to the wire, it's very difficult
God.
because you can't. You got to take some risks. You have to work a little faster. You have to. It's harder to test your stuff, especially in this demo situation, which is why like we would always come to your guys' demo sessions, right? It's like, oh, there's 4 people playing here. Like I don't have to load up 4 instances on my machine to see how it's gonna work. So it's super useful for us as well. And like I could sit there and talk to Shervin or some other designers as you guys are playing. It's like, oh,
why is this happening? We did that a lot actually. Do
you notice this thing broken in the corner? And it's like it really helps the process there. And I think that's part of what made it successful, at least at TennoCon, because we had those people in the room and we had you guys doing the demo basically in front of us every day, right? So
there was a bunch of times I remember during those practice demos where I remember specifically John and I would sit there and we were trying to understand why something wasn't working.
Yeah.
And it was like, as you guys were playing it, we were like reverse engineering the decisions you made. And I was like, oh, okay, they did this, then this, and this should have happened, but this didn't, and that's why you're seeing this now. For the demo, I was sitting with another DE employee, and when she minimized, or like it looked like one of the screens minimized, I thought it crashed. I literally fell to a knee. I was like, I had to do like a Tim Tebow football thing where I was like, I can't look at this. Oh my God. I literally was like, I can't believe it crashed.
I thought I was going to pass out.
And then I went back up and I was like, just raising my hands like, thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, I remember that moment because that's when like Danielle and I came up on stage and Rebecca had to like move out of the way to let us sit down. And I think she just like smashed her keyboard when she sat down.
Was that what happened?
I think so. Like she went to pick up her controller or something and like hit the keyboard and just minimized it.
She pressed start.
She just did something. Yeah. And I just remember, because I'm in my zone at that point.
Right.
I'm thinking about nothing else but this demo being a success.
Sure.
And I just hear Rebecca audibly gasp, and I look and her screen is just white, and I was like, oh my God, it crashed. Yeah, I was like, we're done. But then I see the little stupid Internet Explorer logo, and I'm like, oh shit.
Oh, I didn't even see, because I was watching it from the big screen, so I didn't see that. And so I'm like, oh, it's gone. Oh, wait, like, I've never even, like, what is happening right now? And then it came back up, and I was like, oh, she minimized it. I was like, God damn it. Like,
just super discreetly. Back up. Yeah.
So.
That was a moment. Awesome. All right. Do you guys have, like, social media or anything?
I'm on Twitter.
You're on Twitter.
I can tweet.
Oh, you can just send me, like, I'm in the Warframe Discord. You can just send me a message there if you really want to ask any questions or whatever, but I don't really have any true social media, I guess, at the end of the day.
What's your username, John?
J Gogul.
Oh, there you go.
It's pretty low key.
How do you spell that?
With a J and then a Gogul. Yeah.
Nice. You can usually find me on it's Gazzy, Gahzi. But if you want to talk about conservation, hit me up. I'm your man.
Animal man.
You need a. I think King of Conservation's better.
King of Conversation. Yeah, maybe that's what we'll do. We'll switch it up. I'm KOC.
KOC.
Get you a little crown.
And we'll call you Bruce Willis.
You call me what? Sorry.
Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis.
You gotta go Ben Affleck. He's
Ben
like,
Affleck.
No way.
Bruce Willis. Spoiler alert. Bruce Willis dies.
Oh,
you gotta go Ben Affleck.
I wasn't gonna say that.
Dude, he spoiled the whole movie.
I know.
Now.
You spoiled the movie earlier on.
You did when you said the asteroid blew up.
I didn't say that. I didn't know. I actually didn't say that. We're pointing at each other right now, but I actually didn't say that. I'm not going to say what I said. They can go back and.
Just in case.
Oh, okay, I get it now.
Now you get it.
Because I kept thinking, I'm like, you're going to nuke it? Like, what? Because they nuked the asteroid. No, I
literally said they blew
did.
up the asteroid.
I might have alluded to how they were trying to.
How they were trying to solve
I didn't say they blew it up.
Because they nuked the asteroid.
All right. Guess there's only one way to find out.
Yeah. Go watch.
Go watch Armageddon. That's my plug, I guess.
All right, thank you for listening to episode 5 of the Deconstructing Podcast, and thank you to Jon and Shervin for joining me today. Hopefully, we didn't cause too much stress in your friendship.
Nah, I doubt it.
We're cool.
Yeah.
All right, this has been the 5th episode of Deconstructing. We'd like to give a big thank you to Jon and Shervin for being on the show this month, and we'd like to thank you for listening. Tune in next month for another episode of Deconstructing.